If I had to go back in time, that's what I would do.
You have to have boundaries. Well, a lot of lawyers have no boundaries.
You know, my wife limited me to 10 businesses. She said divorce comes at 11.
Ultimately, it's about risk taking.
The Earley Show will begin after a brief word from today's sponsor, Answering Legal. Visit answeringlegal.com to learn more about our 24/7 virtual receptionist team.
I would absolutely, without question, recommend Answering Legal to every law firm. Not one law firm, but every law firm out there. I've gotten so much business as a result of hiring them. I knew that we were getting a lot of calls after hours. So I needed a company to answer those phone calls live and to get the name, number, because that's key information. All my cases are called back. Answering Legal is the best.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to Answering Legal's 2024 Law Firm Summer Reboot Camp. My name is Chris Earley, your guest host for this panel. I am an injury lawyer in Boston, Massachusetts, and I have assembled today a crackerjack all-star crew of leaders in this industry who I look up to, and they have all been on my podcast called The Earley Show, also sponsored by Answering Legal. So I encourage everyone, sharpen your pencils. There can be lots of lessons gleaned from this session today. We have an hour, so we have a lot to cover, a lot of knowledge on this call today. So you're in the right spot. Thanks for joining us today. Joining me on the call, we have Craig Goldenfarb, John Fisher, and Seth Price. Jen Gore-Cuthbert is scheduled to be on. We're hoping that she's able to make it. But thank you all for being here. It's a privilege and honor to talk with you guys. And thank you so much. Really appreciate this. So to kick things off, I'd like to give each of our panelists the chance to briefly introduce themselves. Would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and where your firm is? Seth, coming to us from Alaska, kick us off, please.
Great to be here and with Craig and John and you, Chris. My name is Seth Price, a founding partner of Price Benowitz, going on almost 20 years. We have 47 attorneys now, just added a couple new ones with a range of practice groups from PI through criminal and family. And about 9 years ago, spun out my passion play, which was digital marketing, into what's now Blue Shark Digital. So thrilled to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for having us on the show. I'm grateful for that. I do catastrophic medical malpractice and complex injury litigation in New York State, Alabama, a few other states. I love what I do, and I'm not a CEO. I'm in the weeds. So I handle trials, depositions. I do just about everything. Small law firm. We have a total team of 9 people, but I love the people that we work with, and I love the work that we do. So it's really important to me.
Fantastic. Craig.
Good morning, Craig Goldenfarb. I'm the CEO of GOLDLAW, a personal injury firm in West Palm Beach, Florida, and we cover all of Florida. We have about 80 to 85 employees, about 10 lawyers, and I have not touched a file in 15 years.
Love it. All right. So as I said, these are all friends of mine who I see all the time in masterminds on the conference trail. So, you know, these guys, including myself, we've been through adversity, we have resilience, and we're going to be talking about things that have helped us level up, hopefully save you some pain and agony that we've experienced on our way to scaling our own firm. So Seth, let me kick it off with you. I want to ask you, what's one thing about running your firm you wish you knew when you first entered this profession?
The thing that I see that most firms, including myself, struggled with early on was getting non-lawyer help in the door sooner than later. I think I was later to the game than I should have been, and that I see so many people today who are really smart about realizing what they're good at and, frankly, what their best use of time is. Like Craig, from day one, I didn't have a case. I didn't have cases or dockets. I divided and conquered with my partner who did that. And so I was fortunate in that. So maybe that took me a little bit longer because I was that person. But I feel that as we've invested in leadership, first with a law firm administrator, moving into the COO realm, that those steps are the ones that really give you the infrastructure to build and grow if that's what you so choose to do.
I love it. That's so smart. John, how about you?
Chris, if I'm 25 years old, I'm right out of law school, I'm trying to figure out what to do, I've got no clue. The advice that I would give myself looking back is that you need to join an elite mastermind of attorneys who are doing things a lot better than you are. And you need to stay with the mastermind and keep going and learn from incredible people like Craig Goldenfarb, Seth Price, and Chris Earley, and just take in all their knowledge, give everything you got. That's the biggest thing that I did not do. I didn't even know what a mastermind was. But if I had to go back in time, that's what I would do. And it would take about 20 years of mistakes away from the process where I would be learning from them, incredible people from day one. So regardless of cost, that's what I would do.
I love it. Accelerated learning, right? I mean, I would have done it earlier myself. That's awesome, John. Thank you. Craig.
I think it's really important, and this panel is a good example, that you identify early on where you want to be on the realm of lawyer versus business person. And anywhere on that timeline or that realm is fine, whether you want to be half business person, half attorney, or 100% CEO, which is all business person like me and Seth, or if you want to be 100% attorney. But once you identify where you want to be on that spectrum, then you can fill your law firm with people who do what you don't want to do.
While we wait for Jen, just, Seth, you kicked us off and you said something that really resonates with me is non-lawyers, right? We're so stuck in, legal. Well, to me, it's the non-legal technicians that help scale a firm. I mean, you need everyone on the bus, but those non-lawyers are so often not appreciated enough in terms of the value add that they give to growing a law firm. So I appreciate, guys, all your insights right out of the gate, right? We're starting so strong. Seth, staying with you for a moment, what do law firm owners need to do to set themselves up for sustained success in the legal profession? Like, what are some golden habits that you feel are just integral to success in the law?
I think that for long-term success, it is systems. I fought them, and I have a podcast with Jay Ruane, who's always Mr. Systems. But I feel like the sooner that I didn't fight them and really invested in them, and then over time, whether you're using Trainual or whatever document process you want, but figuring out how to replicate what you're doing. It's great to have a great year with great people, but people are going to come and go. You're probably one of the few things that's going to stay. Hopefully you retain many people, but I feel that the sooner that you put those systems and processes, we're at the point now where we have a full-time trainer that just not only onboards, but continuously gets what we want as our best practices employed with some checks and balances. So it is not easy. It is not a straight line, but I think that the sooner that people put those systems in place to replicate what they're doing, the more they'll see that growth trajectory go in the direction they wish.
Have you ever heard of that? A full-time trainer. I love that. Is that all the person does is just train others?
It's onboarding, training, and quality control.
Wow, to have someone just dedicated to that, I think is for me, it's novel. I haven't heard of that. That's very interesting. Thank you. John.
What Craig had talked about, I call the scale of self-determination, which is, do you want to be doing trials? Do you want to be a CEO, or do you want to be a manager? Or like me, do you want to be right in the middle of all of this stuff? So knowing what you want to be as a grown-up is so important. And I would say, number one, we learn a concept called your unique ability in Strategic Coach, which basically means there's something that you do that's better than anyone else in the world. You're awesome at it and you're passionate about it. That's where you need to spend 85% of your time. But most lawyers, Chris, spend about 5% of their time in their unique ability. So it's like, for example, me. I love running a law firm, but I hate the administrative crap. If you bring paperwork to me, I'm like out of my mind upset about that. Like, no. So Chris, it's figuring out what are the 5 things that you hate doing and what are the 5 things that you love doing. Write them down and then start delegating the hell out of your list of the things that you hate.
See, I love that. You bring up Dan Sullivan. What comes to my mind is who, not how. Right? You don't have to be the bottle washer, the cook, do everything yourself. You should be doing very few things, right? The fewer, the better, because then you can really focus on that. And that's, just hearing your remarks, that's what I think of as, Who, Not How, really good book. For years, I had multiple lanes open, was doing a million things. When I got real super narrow, I think of Michael Gerber. Everyone on this call has read that book. Everyone on this call who has not read that, anyone in the audience who has not read that book, buy it today. It's a fantastic book. So, John, thank you for that. Craig, what comes to your mind with that question?
What comes to my mind is having a structure for your company. Like we use EOS, which is Entrepreneurial Operating System. So the only way to have real trust and accountability within a company is to have some sort of structure or organization that leads to regular meetings and accountability for all the leaders. So I found since we instituted EOS, it's multiplied our profits, multiplied our trust, and increased our leadership abilities.
When did you start EOS, Craig?
We started EOS about 5 years ago, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey.
I love it. I love it. Jen, so good to see you. How are you?
Hey, sorry guys, I think I had the wrong link.
Thank you for joining us. Really good to have you. Love your energy, love your drive. I see you, crushing social. You're hustling, getting after it. I love it. That's how I wanted you on this call, right? Because I love what you're doing. So thank you for joining us. We're just touching on a couple points, but could you just introduce yourself, right, in case anyone hasn't, heard your name before? Where are you? What do you do? Just tell us a little bit of background, please.
Yes, you were talking about one of my favorite topics, which is EOS. My name is Jen Gore. I'm the owner of Atlanta Personal Injury Law Group here in Georgia, originally from New York. And trying to scale and grow a modern tech-driven law firm that helps more people.
I just wanted to ask you, looking back, what's one thing you wish you knew because you hung a shingle out of law school, right? You didn't really waste time. You kind of got to it, right?
I started my law firm the day I got my license, but, I had worked in law firms all throughout law school. I was a night student and I worked in a law firm during the day. So I feel like, I had some confidence that I could figure things out and I could call people and people would help me. And that's really what I based that off of.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you took a sabbatical for a few months, from your firm, and it ran very well. Is that what happened? Could you speak to that? How you were able to, go away from the firm and it still ran without you? Could you just get into that a little bit for the audience?
When I had my third child, I really wanted to have a maternity leave because I had never had a maternity leave with my first two kids. And, I engineered that with my fractional CFO at the time. It took like 7 months to engineer. We had to get me out of a ton of different things and we had to build other people up and we had to change. A lot of the stuff I was really tied to was with the financials, which I'm not saying that you should be completely disconnected from the financials, but we found ways to build systems that made it much easier. I mean, I'm still surprised how many lawyers still sign every single check. It's like a little prison you live in. After doing that, my team, I really feel that they stepped up to the plate and they were able to hit very similar numbers, if not higher numbers than when I was there, which was a big awakening for me, because I think as lawyers, we think everyone needs us, and as you guys are all so successful, you guys know building great teams is what it's all about and hiring great people. I mean, look at what Seth and John and Craig have done. Like they live this.
Yeah, just hearing your remarks, I'm thinking mindset. So everyone on this call has a mindset of success, of growth, of challenge, of grit, right? I think lawyers, if you're serious about running a law firm as a business, you have to be very resilient. You have to be tough and have a really positive mindset. I know everyone on this call subscribes to that, right? It's almost rhetorical, but it's just so critical. Seth, back to you. I want to ask you this, and everyone else, obviously, what's one decision you've made to help maximize your firm's growth? Still to one thing.
So I'm going to answer the question that I
agree. Chris is the
we're talking about mindset. If you guys can hear me, and I'm going to sign off after this and go take a flight over to Denali Park. But the piece that I would say, and I think Jen embodies this as well as anybody that I've known, is that if you can envision it and if you know that it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And when I talk to people, when I delegate, Jen, before you got on, we talked about having like a non-lawyer administrator, and there are 1,000 micro negotiations that we do on a daily basis. It might be an angry ex-employee, it might be a client, whatever it is. You have all these different situations. And I always say to somebody, let's say somebody, it's a negotiation between $1,000 and $2,000. And I say, try to get it for $1,000, but if you have to pay $2,000. If you give them permission to go to $2,000, they're going to give it. The moment that's there, they're like, okay. And I feel like as a business owner, it's similar. If you think you're going to get there, it'll happen. But if you don't believe it's going to happen, it won't happen. I know that sounds overly simple, but if you look across the people on this podcast and otherwise, what separates, I think, people that I see, law firms that make it and don't, it's do you believe it's going to happen? And if you do, you'll move the chess pieces around to make that happen.
So, just as an example, we're all entrepreneurs, things break and we have to improvise. Just now, my internet was, not coordinating. Now I'm just improvising. I think we all have to do it as entrepreneurs, and just go with the flow, as best we can, because this is hard as hell. Anyone who owns a law firm knows. I know you guys know that very well. I think we may have lost Seth. I know he's in Alaska, so his time is limited with us today. But this stuff, it can take a toll on you. Like, this isn't easy stuff, right? This is not for the faint of heart. John, let me kick it to you, please. How do you balance the desire to grow your firm with making sure that you're happy, healthy, and doing well yourself?
So I have a nutrition coach, and every day we speak at 8:45 in the morning. I put health before anything else. So before the firm, finances, even my family, I put health number one. Every day I work out. I've jogged continuously at least 1 mile for 3.5 years. I do a series of upper body and core exercises every single day. So I prioritize health. And where you spend your time is where you're going to get results. So I think for me, if I'm not feeling healthy and fit and good, then what good is anything else? It doesn't matter. If I feel like my health is falling apart, so I feel great. I feel like I'm 18 years old. And so I prioritize my health over anything else. And I think that's so important, because what good is all of this if you have success, if your life is a mess, your health is crap, your kids hate you, your spouse wants to divorce you? None of this stuff matters. So it's prioritizing your health and your relationships. And I put my money where my mouth is. So people who work in our firm, our small firm, I offer to pay them the same program that I'm in, which is relatively expensive. Say, if you want it, it's yours. Chris, I haven't had anyone take me up on that offer, but it's a standing offer because I believe in fitness, nutrition, and health.
I can tell you that my best ideas, be it personal or professional ideas, come when I'm working out, right? Because you're sort of liberated from the day to day. You're in a zone of relaxation, endorphins kick in. I literally, I'll be honest, make money when I'm walking, because I'm like, holy smokes, I never thought of that. I was listening to a podcast recently on a walk, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do that in my practice, and we just made some more money doing that. Jen, how do you, I know, you're into fitness, you're into, wellness. Like, what do you do to keep yourself right when you have all this on your shoulders, right? You're super busy. How do you make sure that Jen is doing well and handles everything well?
I think between a lot of us, you're going to see patterns. And, I hired a trainer 5.5 years ago, and I go 4 to 5 days a week with her. And I have for these 5 years. And she's like my person I see every day. Like, I was already with her this morning, although I got back from Chicago last night. Like, she's my accountability. A lot of what I've done is put people in place to kind of keep certain type of almost training wheels on, or they kind of force you on the good path. Not to say that I don't have fun here and there. And, we're at a conference, maybe we're eating stuff we shouldn't eat, and maybe we've had drinks, but my 90% of my life is really healthy. And I think that's the balance. And I really agree. If you don't live in a body that you love, life is just not as fun. And I've been in a really an awakening season of my life, really an exciting time. And it seems like a lot of stuff is really just coming together, and I'm doing so much, but I'm in a kind of a flow state. So this does not feel hard. It doesn't feel overwhelming. It feels like I'm in the right place at the right time, and life is working for me, and I'm getting to do all of these things. And I think if you can move into that state and try to do more of the stuff you love and less of the stuff that doesn't inspire you. I mean, sure, we all have to do things here and there we don't love to do. If you're the owner of a law firm, you signed up to be the last man standing if everything goes sideways.
Right.
But generally, I've found if you hire great people, you have to do that less. So health, Health is number one. I want to live to 110 years old. I'm big on like those people that are much older and they've really mastered their health. It's really incredible what the body can do. And I do remember like the state I'm in now and who I am now. I remember 5, 7, 8 years ago, I used to feel guilty going to the gym. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, because I used to think I had to be at the office at 8 a.m., and then I would get there and I'd be like, why am I here? No one even really needs me at 8 a.m. and I'm really missing out on my time in the gym. And so I was in this like battle with my mind. But I found over time, as long, like what John's doing, he's inspired, you're inspiring people in your organization. So a lot of people now know that's a non-negotiable for me, period. Like, I own this firm. I have the right to go to the gym. You have to have that level of confidence, and like, my values are uncompromising. Because isn't there a saying, John, it's like the law firm will take everything if you let it?
Yes, definitely.
You have to have boundaries. Well, a lot of lawyers have no boundaries.
You're right.
But I honestly think it's just business owners, because there's always 35 more things you could do.
Absolutely. And that's really what we're talking about is, it sounds like discipline. We're all disciplined people here, right? Discipline, I feel like, is so important for your wellness, for your business, and also giving yourself permission to go to the gym, permission to work out, permission to go for a walk, whatever it is. Like, you have to give yourself that permission, because without that, I don't think we're going to get very far, right? As law firm owners, what would be your best advice for law firm owners looking to save time and increase efficiency? Right? We're talking about running a business, but we have to be lean. What's helped you to save time? Your most valuable asset is your time that's depleting constantly, right? How do you save your time and increase your efficiency? Anything that's moved the needle for you guys? John, what are your thoughts?
Well, the trend right now, Chris, and I'm seeing it a lot, is remote workers. So offshore, nearshore. This is heavy. I mean, law firms are going that route. And rather than spending $30 an hour on an administrative worker, they're spending $10 an hour. And the cost savings are big. You've got people who are highly motivated. It's a seamless transition. They're working with you. And what I would say is, take those 10 administrative tasks that are just not getting done in your law firm and think about sending them to remote workers. So whatever group you work with, get staffed up is really good. They do all the paperwork, so you don't have to do any of the regulatory filings. They do all of that. They actually will monitor the keystrokes of the people on a software called ActiveTrack. So they'll keep track of what cases they're working on, when they started, when they stopped working, the whole thing. And for people who want to get rid of all the administrative stuff, I think that that's a great option.
We're talking about a lot of different things here that we all encounter, right? These are all common issues that we all face as we scale up our firms, right? No matter what stage of growth we're in, but we're talking about a lot of things: time management, discipline, mindset, giving yourself permission, right? Craig, I know you started your firm, I want to say, was it the late 90s? When did you start?
2001, I think.
Out of the gate, I think you pretty quickly gave yourself permission to get out of the weeds, to get out of things you didn't want to do. How did you go about doing that? What was your mindset like?
Well, I knew that the analogy I used that Jen was talking about is that, we're the golden goose. In other words, we're the one who needs to preserve our health so that we keep producing the golden eggs. So putting your health and your priorities first is so much more important. And the other analogy is, the oxygen mask, when it drops on the plane, you got to put it on yourself first, not on your kids or your loved ones, because you're the one who's in charge. So taking care of your health is primary. I'm in my mid-50s. I still also have a trainer. I still work out 5-6 days a week. You got to stay healthy. You got to, because everything else falls apart if you don't do that. So health is one of the cornerstones of success. And it's mental health, it's spiritual health if you're spiritual, and emotional health. And everything else comes next, because you're no good if you're dead.
Yeah, no, there's no question. As I see it from my seat on the bus, my main focus is marketing, bringing the business, right? You're talking about, the golden goose, and we're talking about, living within your, living your highest, best use of your time. For me, I view myself as a marketer first and foremost. Because without cases, I'm not eating. My family's not eating. I can't make payroll, right? Do you guys have is it the same with you guys? Like, what is your primary focus? Because we're not focused on 10 things each day. We don't have the time, right? For me, it's marketing. Jen, how about you? Like, what's your primary focus?
So there's two things, and this has been a little bit of an evolution. For me as a woman, I'm sure you have some women on here watching. I agree with the virtual staff being like an amazing thing, and you really have to do it to be competitive. We also see much lower turnover with those folks, and really it's been amazing having some of those people. They're lawyers in their country, and they're so grateful, and they'll say like, you know, it was my dream to work in an American law firm, and it's really like, it's a great culture thing for us. And they're smart people, really smart people. You can get someone with an MBA in marketing down in Columbia. So really interesting, great things. But for me as a woman, like my hire has been an executive assistant or a personal assistant, because I can get really bogged down in the house and like the running of a household as a woman, because that kind of tends to lean towards women in our society. And a lot of men here have great stay-at-home wives, and I don't have that. So that honestly like freed up 20 to 30 hours of my week. Just, I don't do any domestic chores. I don't cook. I don't clean. And I'm sure you guys don't either. I wouldn't have time to go to the gym if I was doing all the domestic work. And that's like one of the things I really see women move the needle, is when they get out from under all this domestic chores, because I wasn't even like in a good frame of mind when I would have to do all the laundry and then like make high level executive decisions, you know? So that's my thing for women. And, you know, maybe men that are single, they don't have a wife or they don't have a partner. They probably don't want to be doing those domestic chores either. But the thing, I used to see myself as really like a marketer. That's my role. And I do think marketing is our roles, you know, because that's the lifeblood of the firm. But my newer move is like, I see my most critical role in the company now in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership. There's 25 levels of leadership you can develop. And like the better you get at leading large groups of people and getting people on your mission, a lot of the other stuff really just takes care of itself.
Right. I love everything you just said. Just to unpack it for a second. So develop, not just you leading, but you developing leaders, right? So then there's redundancy. Yeah. Pouring into future, you know, current and future leaders of your law firm. So, you know, those people you're training, you're teaching to be leaders can then teach others to be leaders. Let me ask you a question. It sounds like we've all taken advantage of and utilized offshore or near shore team members. You mentioned culture. How do you guys make sure the people outside the U.S. working on the bus feel aligned with the culture, that they're part of the team? To me, it's tricky. I really am sensitive to that. How do you guys deal with that?
Well, I only offshore marketing. We don't offshore any legal or administrative, and that's because my culture mandates it for the most part. In other words, we are in-person culture, which means we have a culture team. So we have an HR department and we have a culture department, and they're separate. And my nicknames for HR is bad cop, even though we don't say that publicly, because a lot of people think HR is disciplinary, which it kind of is, and rules and regulations, and culture is good cop. So we have a full culture team in our office, and those people are responsible for employee happiness only. Their whole job is employee happiness, not benefits, not discipline, not risk management. It's just happiness. So all they do all day is come up with initiatives to make our employees happy. So because of that, we only offshore some of our marketing, graphic design, and other functions. So we recognize that offshoring would lead to challenges with culture. And because we put culture above everything, culture is number one priority at our office, we have not offshored a ton of stuff. We probably offshore 5 or 6 jobs, and we have about 85 jobs in our office. So because of the culture challenge, we have a culture department, and we have not faced the problem of bringing our offshore people into our culture because we don't have that many.
You know, see, I think the culture is basically a set of shared beliefs. And when you have people who have the same core beliefs that you do, then in my view, you don't have to be in the same office for them to function as successfully as part of your firm. So whether they're in our office, if they're halfway across the country or halfway across the world, if they share our beliefs, then that's great. And this, Chris, we talk about core values every single day in our firm. For example, our COO the other day said to me, you weren't really direct with that judge that you were talking to. And I said, you're right, I wasn't. So I got back on the phone and I said it direct, straight, because that's a core value of brutal honesty that we have with each other, with our clients, and with the people who work for us. So in my view, if you've got somebody who's passionate about the same values that you have, you can function just fine without them in the office.
I agree wholeheartedly. And also, we allow our teams to lead their people. So like a lot of those overseas people, they're on a team with, an attorney and that team, because we're in pods. And, that within our firm, there's like subcultures, there's little pods that, obviously we hire based on our values. But I went around and I visited a lot of really successful law firms, and, we allow those pods to kind of, they have a lot of buy-in because they're having weekly EOS meetings. They're having their L10 meetings. They're not with us in person, but there is a lot of things we do that make them feel they're part of the team. And we also have the in-firm chats. I'm sure you guys all use those features. It's kind of a way people all stay in connection. But also my firm, even the people that are in person, they're only in person 2 days a week. I mean, most people work 2 days in the office, 3 days remote. We have a lot of mix and hybrid. And I just really feel that we're going to have to embrace that to be competitive in the future, because you can get a much larger pool of people, a higher talent pool. I have people on my intake team in Las Vegas, California, South Carolina, because we just said we want to find the best intake people. We don't care if they live here in Georgia.
Yeah, it really widens the scope of talent. This comes down to people, because we know what we're going to do as law firm owners. We know what we can get done. We can only do so much on our own. This is a people thing, right? How can we get the best people? And, I'm thinking, Patrick Lencioni, right? The ideal team player. When I hire people, I like my team I've given that book to my team members to read, to buy in out of the gate. I think once you hire the right person, you got to onboard them the right way. To me, to steal Lencioni's, theory, I like humble, hungry, and smart. Probably humble is probably my biggest thing. I don't care about where you went to school. Like, I don't really care if you never touched the legal industry in any way, shape, or form. If you're a potential rock star who has a work ethic, and John, this goes back to core values, right? Are there a couple virtues, a couple things that you seek out when you're interviewing someone, or that you seek to have your HR department listed out of potential candidates? Like, what are some things you need to have your non-negotiables for new hires? John, please start us off.
We'll ask people, what is your biggest weakness? And we get so much bullshit when we ask that question. It's just like, come on, I work too hard. I'm too devoted to success. Come on, give me a break. Those are not weaknesses. A weakness would be, I'm not very good with organization. True, Chris, I'm not very good with organization. So I hire people who are good at that. But the reality is, why do we ask that question, Chris? We ask it because I want to see if the person is willing to be vulnerable and transparent with me, because these are a part of our core values and beliefs. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Chris, if somebody is working at our firm just for a paycheck, it doesn't work.
Right.
It never works out. We need somebody who share a passionate for the rights of the disabled. And if they do, I can tell you, I could care less about mistakes. If they're fighting every day for those core beliefs, then I love working with them, and I will fight like hell for them. And the one thing is, Chris, if somebody badmouths to me another person on our team, I say, what did they say when you said it directly to their face? Because I don't want to hear this bullshit. They need to go directly to that person and talk to them, because we're brutally honest with each other. That's a core value.
Yeah, and just real quick to piggyback on that, I don't tolerate talking bad about clients either. You have to be really, teammates, deference to one another, but to I'm talking about clients help us pay our bills. Clients are a lot of money to help them, so they deserve to have a bad day every once in a while. Obviously, we don't take abuse, but I do preach to my team, we have to be very careful on how we talk about our clients. Jen, how about yourself? Where do you stand on that?
I think it can get really easy to get like on a high horse about these type of things, and like, we have the perfect culture and we do everything right. And like, what I would say is, people will say like, oh, you must have an amazing law firm, you know, like, and people must love working there. And I will say often, you know, some people would hate working for my law firm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think this is about building the perfect culture. I'm on like this path about like crushing this idea of perfect, right?
Yep.
For people that share John's values, they will love working for him. Like, for example, organization. You've got to find your tribe. There are some great people that hate being organized and they all work together in some other office, but they're not working for me and they're not working for John, you know? And it's more about embracing your own uniqueness and like what you love and what excites you and what is important to you. You know, people just think there's a perfect culture. No, there's a very specific culture that really reflects me, that reflects John, that reflects Craig. Like even what Craig's described, he has a different culture and he loves it. So this is not about just replicating other people's ideas and cultures. This is really a self-reflective journey of like, what do I want my company to stand for? And what kind of people? I started thinking about like, what kind of people have worked here that I love to work with? What is unique about them? What is their like it factor? That is it, you know? And that is a lot of what we're talking about is a journey you have to go on. Nobody can do it for you. People can expose you to these ideas, but we've made every mistake in the book. We've hired every wrong person.
Same.
We have gotten here because we went through that journey. It's not like we just perfected it from day one.
No, I'm with you. I really hope people just wrote that down. There's no perfect culture. There's no such thing. It's an ongoing pursuit. If you could find those, there's a small sliver in the population who's really picking up exactly what you're putting down. That's who you want, I feel like. We're like, geez, Jen, I'm speaking her language. Because if everyone's speaking your language, you're speaking to nobody. It's a very minute segment of the population that fits, I think I speak for all of us, our particular core values, right? That are specific to us. I think that's really important. You know, Craig, I know, you know, you're obviously a culture, you know, fanatic, and I've really learned from you on that big time. I've been to your office and you are in person and that's interesting because a lot of firms have gone remote. A lot of firms are strictly in person. You're strictly in person. What about you when it comes to hiring? What about you when it comes to talking about clients? Like, how does that look in your firm?
Well, I think Jen raises a great point, which is that there is no perfect culture for everybody. It's you got to know yourself. And The Ideal Team Player is a fantastic book that you mentioned by Lencioni, because one of the tools they take you through is you pick a person at your office currently, like Jen said, who represents, like if you wanted to clone that person, you could. And then you scorecard them on your core values. So if that person is like a 10 on every one of your core values, you've now identified a person, an avatar of the type of person you'd like to hire. And then you kind of, when you're interviewing, you kind of measure that person up to that perfect employee that we all have, that one person. And we do that. Like, you know, is this person like Sue? We have one employee named Sue who just meets all our core values. And one of them is super organized. So, you know, I'm really type A. And I find that people who get along in my office really fit the culture of type A. So we use a couple of tools in interviewing, like the DISC test and the Myers-Briggs, that we put every employee through, because those two tests are good at spotting some character traits, such as being type A. So if you identify skill sets that would work in your culture, in your company, maybe find some tests or some questions that really flesh out where that person fits that mold. And my best interview question for being type A is, tell me about your closet. We ask every employee, every prospective employee, tell me about your closet. And if you're type A, that question excites the hell out of you, because you talk about how your shoes are organized and your socks are organized. And if you go, what do you mean? Well, I know you're not going to do well at my law firm. So if you can come up with tests like the DISC or Myers-Briggs, or questions that elicit as to whether they have the character traits that you love for your company, like tell me about your closet and tell me about your stickies. Tell me about your to-do list. Now, if you're not type A, you don't have a to-do list, or you put it on your phone. If you're type A, you live with your to-do list, right? Your stickies, Jen's showing. Exactly. Tell me about your stickies and what colors they are. Now, if the person goes, what do you mean, what colors are your stickies? Then they don't belong at GOLDLAW. So again, just Jen raises a great point, which is there's no perfect culture. It's the perfect fit for your culture. And I think that's a really good point.
I can't agree anymore with you. I stole this from a friend of ours, right? Bill Biggs. He likes potential hires to meet with multiple people on the team. And I love that because then you're getting buy-in, not just that Chris Earley likes Joe Schmo, to hire him, but that multiple people have stamped approval. Yes, we like Joe Schmo. Then the team wants to be invested in that and Joe's success, right? We only have so much time, but I just want to kind of, if we could just, I think this will help the audience. You found the right candidate, the right person. They've accepted the offer. How do you onboard? I know it's a big, hairy topic, but like, what's your general focus when it comes to onboarding? John, what are your thoughts?
Well, Chris, one of the attorneys in our mastermind, Lynn McCraw, he has a very systematic procedure for onboarding in 100 days. So it's step by step. And I've never seen anything better than that. I'm sure Craig and Jen do the same thing, but we're not nearly at that level. I wish we were. But it's very systematic with stages and the process. And so it's something where I would say for anything onboarding, is have a system for it, have a documented process for it. If you're going to hire somebody, have a process for that. Make sure it's documented and make sure you're doing it. So every Friday we meet and we call it training day, but the training day is a concept where we take one policy at our firm and as a team, we discuss it. Are we doing this? What can we do to improve this policy? Can it be tweaked? And then we'll document the changes at the training day. And then we'll put it into Fisherpedia, which is our online website of policies. And then we've got something, we achieved something. Because what good is having policies if you're not using them? So that is what I would recommend for onboarding is make sure it's documented and systematic.
Just super quick. I know Seth, before he jumped off, mentioned Trainual. I think Trainual is like $1,000 a year. Trainual is a good asset. Similar products like that can really provide you leverage. Jen, what are your thoughts?
The other thing I would say with systems is like developing audits for your systems. That's a really big game changer for us. Years ago, we would develop what I thought were the Cadillac of systems and then come to find out no one's using them.
Yes,
so
I hear you.
I don't know if folks have any ideas about that, but it's like if the speed limit says 25, but there's no police, like, what do you think people do?
Yeah.
Jen, it's so funny that you say that because we have a system to put every expert witness on a written budget where if they're going to exceed their budget, they have to get our approval in advance. And since the pandemic, we got away from doing that. And so the last case we had, our oncologist sent us a bill for $25,000. And I'm like, that's crazy. And it turns out we didn't have him on a written budget. So that we had a training day. We discussed this. We put the budget into Fisherpedia. Now, no one is to be hired as an expert without agreeing to a written budget in advance.
I love that. And just super quick, I know Craig has a lot to share on this. I want to hear from Craig. Super quick, a book called Systemology. I read that when I started to scale my firm. Systemology recommends having a systems champion in the office, right? So you can rely on the speed limit being adhered to, right? So there's no crashes in the office. So just that's one small thing, a systems champion that I kind of thought was interesting. Craig, I know you're very serious about onboarding, right? It's given you great success as you scaled. What's your general approach, as you preach to your team about what you expect from onboarding?
Well, we start broad and we teach the person about the law firm for the first week before they do anything at all, before they're allowed to pick up a file or do anything. So we start broad and we show them videos. Some of them are videos by me about the firm. Then we take them through marketing to let every employee know what marketing we do so they're aware of our company. So we start broad and then go narrow. So they don't really get into their department for about a week or two. And then it is all a written checklist. So when we create a system, what we try to do, and my COO is the systems champion, my chief operating officer, is we don't let them proceed until they check off in our payroll system, which is called Paylocity. There are certain modules they must complete before they're allowed to proceed. So the way we ensure it is both audits and then we have a system for making sure that they follow the system. Mm-hmm. So it's like a double checklist. So they can't proceed in Paylocity as an employee unless they've completed all the modules.
Entrepreneurship is obviously about taking risks, like we said, being brave. I want to ask you guys your biggest challenge. And I'll tell you, my biggest challenge is patience. My wife is like, dude, you got to chill. It's growing. It's happening. You just got to wait it out and keep grinding. For me, patience is my biggest issue, right? Just being vulnerable and real. John, what's your biggest challenge as a law firm owner?
The imposter syndrome. That
Yes.
one's easy. So thinking that I'm not worthy of it. And so about 5 years ago, Bill, the lawman Umansky, said that he was contemplating buying some beautiful oceanfront home in Florida. And I'm like, dude, that's crazy. I could never afford that. And he looked at me, he said, that's a self-limiting belief. And he's totally right. Like, I'm just imposing this limitation on myself. So I thought about this. And Chris, my dream has always been to have a home on the majestic Hudson River, but it costs an absolute fortune to do that. And so 2 weeks ago, I bought a home on the Hudson River, and it's my dream home. It couldn't be better than what it is. And every day I look out at bald eagles floating across the sky. But, I never would have done that if my friend Bill, the lawman Umansky, didn't say to me, hey, you've got self-limiting beliefs. And he's totally right. Like, Chris, all of us, when we started, we didn't think that we were worthy of the success that we have. We think, oh, this is for someone else. It's for someone else to drive a car like that or to have a nice home like this. But we have to give ourselves permission to believe that we are just as entitled to all of these things that everyone else who has success has.
That self-talk is everything, that inner voice. I'm with you, John. Jen.
I would second everything that John said. Even like every level you get to, there's another level, right? And I think that's like the journey and the ongoing, like you hit a level and then you go like, I never thought I would get this. Like last week, the law school honored me as a distinguished alumni. There's only been like 25 people in its 100 years. It really brought up a lot of like, this is crazy. Like, what? And I'm like, I need to remove the word crazy. This is normal. This is my life. This is what I've earned. This is what I give. I'm getting back. But it's like every level, it pushes you so far out of your bounds because you're like, there's a whole nother level I didn't even see. When you get to like the next peak, there's like more you can see that's even bigger. And it's really like being able to fully step into your power. And what's really meant for you is so much bigger than you can even imagine.
That's awesome, Jen. Craig, what are your thoughts? Love it.
Sure. So my biggest challenge is trust and delegation. So as a type A entrepreneur, it's a struggle to delegate because you always believe you're the only one who can do it or you could do it best. So, one of the very first principles that I realized was the 80-20 rule. There's so many 80-20 rules, but one of them is if someone can do it 80% as well as you can, you must delegate it. So, and then the concept of undelegation, which is fascinating. So if you believe you're the best and then you delegate it and they mess it up, what do? Where does your amygdala go? Where does your brain go? It goes to fear, which is I knew I couldn't trust that person. So you undelegate it, you bring it back. And that's the worst thing you can do as an entrepreneur is undelegation. So for me being so type A, it was a real struggle at first to delegate and let other people do things, and then I would undelegate and go and tell myself, "See, I knew they'd screw it up." So to me, growing as large as I've grown has been an ongoing battle of learning trust and delegation. And the best book for that, if anyone is listening, is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, also by Patrick Lencioni, I believe. So it talks about the necessity of trust and productive conflict and how to delegate. And that whole book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, was kind of a Bible as to how I grew and scaled. So if you're the type of person who thinks only I can do it and you don't want to hire and you don't want to trust or delegate, that book is a great tool. And that's always been my biggest challenge.
All right. As we wrap up, I have 2 super quick questions, right? This has been a really good experience. I really enjoy your time, guys. Thank you so much. I'm loving this so much. I know the audience is too. So we're speaking a lot to current law firm owners. What about the guy or gal who is thinking about going out on their own? What are some non-negotiables that they must have if entrepreneurship as an attorney would be the right path, right? What are some bedrock non-negotiables? John, what are your thoughts?
Chris, I mean, the bottom line is not everyone is meant to do this. So I push back against people who say, oh, you've got to own your own law firm. You've got to do this. That's bullshit. No, you don't. Lots of people, in fact, the majority of people are better suited just to work in a law firm.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. So that's all a good thing. But if this is something where ultimately it's about risk taking. If you're willing to put yourself out there and take a lot of risks and get the door slammed in your face over and over again, then you're an entrepreneur. and you're
Yes.
ready for this. And
Totally.
so the reality, Chris, is when we started our firm 11 years ago, I took 3 defense verdicts in a row, and our team met at a small table in our office, and they were like, what's going to happen here? I mean, are we going to make it? And I said, if it takes everything I've got, if it takes every penny I've got, we're going to keep fighting. There is no plan B. And our team needed to hear that from me, that there was no backup option. And if you're like that, Chris, I tell this to everyone. If you are willing to move, to do whatever it takes for success, then heaven and earth will get out of your way to make it happen. Things will just fall into place for you. But you have to have that commitment. And if you don't have that commitment, then every little obstacle will be something that will stop you from getting where you need to go. So that's what I would tell someone who's just starting out. I'd say, look, if this is something you really want, if you're starting out of law school, you want to start a firm, you want to grow with it, you better be 100% committed to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thanks, John. Jen.
Yeah, it's so funny. These guys are all my people because they believe a lot of very similar things as me. I think if you're called to something, usually it's something in your heart. Although, if you're just wanting to do it because your friend did it, it's not going to work in the same way. The best thing about becoming an entrepreneur or a law firm owner is the person you're going to have to become to sustain this for a long period of time.
Right.
And you've got to be willing to change, like, constantly. And it's always surprising to me, I'm sure to you guys, how many people really don't like change. You have to embrace, like, the love of change and development to get better. And, like, if you keep having the same lesson and over again, you're not learning the lesson. Like let's talk about delegation. Like Craig said, like, it's going to keep hitting you until you get it. Like, you're going to run into it 100 times until you master that lesson. Right. And so, starting out, I think it's all about building yourself as a brand. In the very beginning, everyone I meet, I tell them, you are a brand. When someone thinks of you, they think of something. Control that narrative, design it, tell people, perfect who you are and what you do and how you show up in the world, because that really is where I launched everything. Even in law school, I was telling everyone, I'm Jen Gore, I'm a personal injury lawyer. And, helping people to understand who you are and how you fit into the narrative in their brain is really where a lot of people launch. A lot of people are starting their law firm off heavy referral. So you have to be loud, break through the disruption, shake a lot of hands, meet a lot of people, and you have to do great work, which, drives referrals.
I love it. Yeah, I think you're a great self-promoter, Jen, on social. You're very good at pushing your brand in a very genuine way. And then when I meet you at a conference, you come out to me, you sit down, you're so comfortable in your own skin. I really appreciate your friendship. I love what you're doing, seriously. And you're a great ambassador for your personal brand. So awesome stuff. Craig, how about you?
I view myself as a creative builder. I like to build things. I have over 10 businesses, and I'm addicted to building. So that's one characteristic as an entrepreneur that you may want to see. If you have that, is are you a builder? Do you like to create? My wife limited me to 10 businesses. She said, divorce comes at 11, and I laughed, but it's true because I'll go to the beach and I'll see the guy bring me a drink, and I'll want to talk to him about how the beach guys are organized and how they're paid and what umbrellas they have, and I want to create the service and make it better. So that's just an addiction I have. So that's one aspect of being a CEO or entrepreneur is everything you see as an opportunity to build. So that's not necessary, but that's me. That's part of who I am. Is I'm a builder, and I think I'm creative. So the one word we haven't used today is visionary, and that's a really good word to describe what we are. Is we like to be visionaries and be creative and come up with ideas. So that's another character trait that if you just want to be a lawyer, that's fine. But if you want to grow things, build things, create, that's where you're going to be a good entrepreneur, and maybe you'll be a serial entrepreneur, which is a little bit like a serial killer. In my case, it's a little crazy, but that's why my wife limited me to 10, only 10 businesses.
It was so great to meet your wife at the conference in Boston.
How can you not have fun with these people?
That's awesome. I talk about patience, but you got to be okay with turbulence. I was just on a flight. My family and I just went to a Disney vacation, and the flight got turbulent. I kept thinking to myself, you have to be okay with turbulence. So if you're on this call, you're thinking about pulling the plug and jumping out of the plane and doing your own thing as an entrepreneur. You have to be okay with turbulence. All these people on this call are constantly getting punched in the face, and they keep getting off the mat. I know this, right? I know that personally. I know that resonates. All of you on this call relate to that. So this is such a great call. We could go on and on for days. This is just, like Jen said, this is just such a stimulating, awesome conversation. But I'd love to continue the conversation. If people would like to get in touch with you, how can they do that? Craig, how can people reach out to you and connect with you?
People can email me at cgoldenfarb@goldlaw.com. That's my brand, GOLDLAW. They're welcome to email me. And they're welcome to attend my conference every year called the 7-Figure Attorney Summit, which is going to be in Orlando this year. So you go to the website, 7figureattorney.com. You can sign up and you get me and my amazing leadership team for a whole day.
It's a great conference. I've been twice. Love it. Jen, how can people reach out to you if they want to have a conversation?
You can find me on social media. My email is Jennifer@ATL Injury Law Group. And find me on LinkedIn. I know a lot of these guys are very busy on LinkedIn.
Yes. For the lawyers everyone on this call, LinkedIn is blowing up. Don't get left behind. LinkedIn is big time right now. John, how can people reach out to you?
Chris, anyone who sends me an email or calls me, and don't send it to my work email because I haven't checked that in 3 years, but jfisherlawyer@gmail.com. Fisher's Fisher. I have 3 books, The Power of a System, The Law Firm of Your Dreams, and my newest book, Win Today. Happy to send you free signed copies of all 3 books. So if they want the books, they want our monthly newsletter, we're happy to send that as well.
How about the Mastermind Experience? Could you talk about the Mastermind Experience, which I love?
Yeah, Mastermind Experience. In 2013, I was at my first mastermind in Chandler, Arizona. I absolutely blew my mind. I came home after 2.5 days with the executive team at Infusionsoft. And my wife was like, how much did this cost? I'm like, doesn't matter. And she said, how much? 10 grand. But it was the best 3 days of my life. And so the reality, Chris, is when we leverage the wisdom and knowledge of other people, it's just a way of building it. And I would say to anyone, you don't necessarily need the mastermind experience, but that'd be great if you did. Join any mastermind with elite people and learn from them, leverage their knowledge, form friendships with amazing people, and it will just lead to incredible places that you never even dreamt possible. So the mastermind experience, the last one was in Sicily in July, and the next one is October 25th in Washington, D.C. And then after that, we're going to be, I think, in Florida, maybe piggyback with Craig's event. So we're working on that, and we'll go from there.
I love it. Love what you guys are doing. Thank you so much for the energy, the knowledge, the wisdom. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. That is all the time we have for this discussion. I'd like to thank Craig Goldenfarb, Jennifer Gore-Cuthbert, John Fisher, and Seth Price, all the way from Alaska, for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Seeing everybody.